France, their B team, I guess you could say, 36-5 winners over Italy. Italy were in the lead, believe it or not, for a while. But second half, especially, proved a bit too much for the Italians. I will go over some of the key stats and key events of the game. You guys can let me know your thoughts on how you thought it went as well. It was a bit of a weird game, like by far more kicking than any other game we have seen in the Autumn Nations Cup thus far. Like England don't get necessarily criticised, but it's quite obvious that they like to put boot to ball. They kicked, how many times was it against Wales today? 44 times, and Wales kicked 33. If I can find my old notes. Generally, I think it's been like 44, 43 kicks against Georgia. Did I write it down? It was in the 40s anyway. Kicks, 42 against Georgia. So England like a kick. Like putting teams under pressure. They got so many guys who can kick so well. This game, France kick 54 times and Italy 48. So both of them kicking in this game more than the most kicking team in the Autumn Nations Cup. Kicking is fine. It just meant that there was kind of less ball in hand notes that I took. Anyway, it was a bit of a battle. I thought Dulin at the back for France looked particularly comfortable, which was really pleasing to see. And good to see a few of the guys that I haven't really seen before. A bit disappointing for Italy, to be honest, because there were so many changes to that French team that had a week off. I would have thought they would have come with a bit more. But again, it seems to be the second half that really costs Italy. It was an interesting, fitting tribute to Christophe Dominici at the start of the game. They had a big picture of him printed out. And they had a moment's silence, which was really quite touching. And there was a good try from a French winger in this game, which was pretty sweet to see as well. But anyway, 2 minutes, France get a penalty early, and they kick it from long range, about 42-something meters, 3-0, very, very early to France. But interestingly, it started with a little bit of force back. Anyway, I know some people call it aerial tennis, apparently, in the UK. But I feel like force back implies there's more tactics to it. I don't know. There's definitely a point to all the kicking anyway. Both sides were winning breakdown penalties. No one could really get ahead. Violi at one point dropped the ball cold. Seemed a bit lost for Italy. So I wrote there's a bit of force back. Dulin had a kick that was too big. So the Italians were able to touch it down. And then, like in the end goal area, then the Italians at one point kicked it out on the full. So there were a few errors. Not so many points. France were building up into the 20th minute, but would knock on in the Italians 22, so not quite with the execution there. 25 minutes, Italy go 10 phases, and eventually Carlo Canna gets the first try of the match on 26 minutes. Zanon had a couple of good carries in that build-up. He looked particularly sharp. Garbisi had the dummy, and he put the inside ball through to Canna, who went over for the try. So it was a really well-worked Italian try. They did miss the conversion, so it was 5 points to 3. So you've had two lead changes. Well, you're going to have two lead changes. France go in front. Italy take the lead, first lead change. And because they get stuck on 5 points, the Italians are going to surrender the lead once again. But anyway, 29 minutes, the Italians concede they win a scrum penalty, actually. Sorry, their scrum's been under a bit of pressure. The AR gave that call to the ref, and the Italian celebration was massive. They're 5-3 up. They've just won a scrum penalty a few minutes later. You could feel a bit of the belief among some of the Italian guys, I think, at that point. And admittedly, I was checking what the betting odds were during the game, because I think before the Italians scored, they were paying like $12 and then $9. And then when they won that scrum penalty, they went down to like $5, I think, to win the game. Italy went 13 phases. Eventually, they were turned over by the French, and maybe that was kind of a turning point just around the half an hour mark. France had a 5-meter scrum. The Italians had to take it back because Dulan had put a kick through and the Italian winger, was it Trua? Had to take it back over his own goal line and dot it down to be safe. So the French end up with a 5 meter line out, 5 meter scrum, and that leads to Dante's try. I don't think I've seen this guy Dante play. He is a big unit of a man. People have kind of compared him to Bastero. Some guys gave me some really helpful comments in the preview video, and now I can kind of see why. I mean, he's not that same size, but he's a big unit. It was an absolute bursting run from him. Some really good leg drive and some support from the guys behind him managed to get over the line somehow. He went through a couple of the Italian smaller players, to be honest, and it was 10 points to 5. Good work from the French to get back in front. So that's your second lead change. The Italians win a penalty before half-time. They end up taking a shot for the touchline rather than for 3 points. They go 7 phases, but end up knocking it on. So maybe they could have taken the 3, but they're still within touching distance. 10 points to 5 at half-time. And it seems to be becoming a pretty familiar story for the Italians that okay at half-time, but second half proves pretty troublesome. Second half, though, the Italians do go 13 phases in the French half, but Maclou gets a turnover. 52 minutes, that man Trua gets yellow carded for Italy for an attempted one-handed intercept, and the ref just says to him, you go for the ball one-handed. This is Nigel Owens in his 100th test. If you go for the ball one-handed and you don't get it, you risk getting yellow carded. And sure enough, but they said there was nothing for a penalty try. However, it didn't matter because 2 minutes later, Villiers gets a try. Flying run from him. That was from a loose Italian line-out ball. And boom, all of a sudden it's 17 points to 5. And that's where the floodgates kind of open. A few minutes later, Teddy Thomas goes through a chip and chase. They checked whether he was taken out in his follow-up. They ruled that kind of, partially, but not yellow card worthy, just accidental. So it's from the TMO. Saran gets the next try on 61 minutes. It's from a big line-out maul. They get the conversion, 24-5. Moments later, Teddy Thomas gets a try of his own. Dulan with the tackle bust on the restart. Great play from him. The passing was too easy, but the pass was too easy. Pass too easy? Too easy, basically. From the kickoff, man. Really bad D from the Italians and great play from Dulan. And Teddy Thomas to support him. 14 points conceded during that yellow card. And Maclou gets that last try right at the death to make it 36-5. So it's a bit of a blowout. It's a hard game to get a read on in some ways. Like, it's another performance where the Italians, as I said, couldn't quite go the distance. And their tackling percentage ends up at 80. Now, 80 is probably like okay for Super Rugby, but at test level, it's not going to get the job done, whereas the French were at 90. The French made 133 tackles to the Italians' 75. So, yeah, it's not like the Italians weren't throwing stuff at them, but the Italian attack wasn't really that piercing. Like, as I mentioned, Zanon was one of the few guys who was looking pretty dangerous. Like, Minozzi was pretty quiet. Run meters 353 to 258. That's in France's favour. Defenders beaten 19 to 15. Passes 108 to 148. So the Italian guys were spinning the ball. But remember, 54 kicks to 48 kicks. That's a lot of the way the ball was moving around. Turnovers considered pretty concerning for the Italians. 15 to France's 9. Dulan got man of the match. He had 113 run meters, 3 defenders beaten, and a clean break. Try assist. Girassi had 19 out of 21 tackles. Good effort from him in his first game. Sperardino for Italy had 94 run meters and 3 defenders beaten. Canone had 11 from 12 tackles. But ultimately, it was a game with a whole heck of a lot of kicks. And over the course of the 80, the French second team still proved too strong for the Italians at home, as my kids are playing in the background. So yeah, I would imagine Nigel Owens after that effort was pretty tired. He seemed a bit grumpy. Like, he told the players both sides, like, stop. I don't want to have to tell you to stop running forwards every time your guys kick it. I guess because there was so much kicking. He kept saying, like, stop 13, stop, when someone would kick it so they wouldn't get, done for advancing. He seemed tired. He told them both off. I don't want to be yelling out that all day, he basically said. But what does this mean? France go to play England at Twickenham next week. That'll be a big game. It'll be interesting to see what kind of selections we see from France. And Italy, in all likelihood, will play Wales. So, yeah. A bit of a kick fest. I didn't mind it. Like, the handling at times was a bit poor. The Italian set piece at times was under a bit of pressure. It's another close first half. I can still see some encouraging signs, but not quite the full deal over the 80. And for France, I was really pleased to see some guys who I really was not familiar with at all. To see them, in action and showing that there's a fair bit of depth in French rugby, which is, pleasing to see as well. But, you guys let me know your thoughts on the game. What did you think of it? And, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.